Hi there, today we're going to be talking about two things that happened in the VCT this past week that I think is a good opportunity to provide some feedback to Riot Games. One of which is the draws for Stage 2 of the Americas and the Frost/Termi beef. So for the first thing, we're going to talk about the Stage 2 draws, which I was kind of surprised that this happened. Right, it was about 40 minutes after the finals and I saw this clip by Sliggy. And I was just wondering, why are they doing draws for just the group stages of Split 2? And before I go into the things that I dislike about this, I want to praise Riot for at least one good change that they made this year versus last year when it comes to how they handled the group stages of both splits. You see, in 2024, the results of Split 1 carried into Split 2 of the group stages, which is why you get these kind of standings. And this year it's a little bit different, where Stage 1's results don't impact who can make it to Stage 2's playoffs, which I think that's a really good change that Riot made and should stay that way. Mainly because the meta is always changing and you don't want someone who was just dominant at the first half of the season going into champs on a completely different meta. You want the best teams competing on the current meta, right? However, the thing I don't like about the way the Americas handled Stage 2 is the fact that they are swapping organizations in each group. And one of the first reasons is that this kind of messes up champs points in a way, right? Because some teams are going to have to face G2 Esports and MIBR twice, while others have an easier way of getting these champs points. And this specifically matters a lot in a region like the Americas, where someone who's like in 8th place like NRG are only 3 points away from Crew Esports. So even though it might be a long shot, it's possible for a team like NRG to actually make it to champs at that 4th spot. However, when you switch teams from each group, the way these champs points are earned is a little bit less fair. Like I mentioned beforehand, some teams are going to be facing better organizations more, while others are going to be facing lesser competition, meaning more chances of getting those champions points. Evil Geniuses now have to face both Furia and 2G, which is easier than them having to face Furia and G2. And speaking of NRG, they're also screwed because instead of playing 2G, now they have to play MIBR. So even if one team does get 5 champs points while the another has 4, those 4 champs points might have been harder to earn than another team that has 5 because of the competition that they face is different. And also 2G and Furia are kind of just screwed in the alpha bracket. I'll be surprised if one of these teams are somehow able to make it to the playoffs of Stage 2. In my opinion, they should just face the opposite groups, which is something that they did last year. The only reason why it didn't make too much sense last year was because the amount of teams were odd. This year it's even, so it's a little bit better in my opinion. Overall, I don't know why they decided to do group stage draws, but some people in my comment section has said it has something to do with the fact that there's one less week being played or something like that. And if that's the case, then fair enough. But my thing is, I just don't think you can have a system like the champions points be fair while also swapping teams on each groups. I think you just have to have one or another because they're currently kind of conflicting with each other. Because at the end of the day, if they continue to do this every single year, there's going to be a couple of teams that benefit the most from swapping places and a couple of teams that suffer too in the process. And this is because each team isn't facing each other at least once. And the only argument that I can find against this is the fact that some organizations do roster changes a lot. But I don't think it's enough to justify all of this while still having champs points. And also, if they were going to swap teams, I really think they should have done it based on playoff seeding rather than the results of the group stages of Stage 1. And no, I don't think match fixing is what's going on here, even though it is in the thumbnail of this video. I don't know what to say. Congratulations, you got clickbaited. Now part 2 starts off with these two coaches not fist bumping each other, which is a very standard tradition in the VCT as a way to just show respect for your opponent, and it's kind of on brand for Riot Games too. And as you can see, Frost, who is the head coach of Talon, did not fist bump DRX's coach Termi. You can also see Frost was trying to tell the DRX players that he's not trying to be disrespectful to them, he just doesn't really like their coach. And a little bit afterwards, more light was shed on why this was happening, and it kind of goes into 2 different directions. Before we get into that, I have to make something clear. Termi is a head coach of DRX, which is a Korean team. He mainly speaks Korean, while Frost is more of an American person who does not speak a lot of Korean, at least from what I know. And apparently there was a mistranslation online where it made it seem like DRX's head coach said something nasty about Frost's mom, which you couldn't possibly understand why Frost might not like Termi. Another thing that came to light was the fact that Frost was accusing certain Korean teams of scrim sharing, basically what the New England Patriots got in trouble for in the past. Things started to get even more spicy when Governor, who was also a former Talon member, came out the woodworks and said that they have proof of certain teams sharing scrim results. And for people who don't know, scrimming is like when two teams spar to like test ideas and whatnot. And sharing that data with another team can give you a huge advantage, because at the end of the day, Valorant is a tactical based shooter where strategies can really give you the upper hand in a game. So the whole idea of sharing scrims is very taboo among people. There's only one problem whenever you say these kind of allegations, is because one, it's hard to get actual proof of scrim sharing happening, mainly because that means someone had to be a snitch. And it's not necessarily always just the coaches that are doing the scrim sharing. It could just be players themselves who are just having lunch and they just happen to mention, oh, we just played these guys, they had this crazy lineup. It could have just been an accident or even on purpose, who knows. But what really kind of caught my eye was the fact that Governor said that they showed this proof to Riot Games and they did nothing, which means a couple of things. One of which is that the proof that Talon shared with Riot Games wasn't that strong, or two, it's not against the rules. So I went into the code of conduct for the VCT, and it's 41 pages long, so I didn't read everything. I only read section 7, which is the code of conduct. It talks about like conduct in general, competitive integrity, and unprofessional behaviors, right? So that's the only section that I read, and I didn't see anything about scrim sharing being illegal, right? They do talk about cheating, but that's more about like the hardware and program, like no cheating in that. They do talk about conduct outside of the game, but that's more related to like violence, drug harassment, and hateful speech. Hey guys, this is post editing Kaizen here. I realized that the previous document that I was looking at was a little bit old, 2021. And I went on Riot's website to see if I can find an updated version of that document, and I couldn't, but I did find the 2025 Riot Games Esports Global Code of Conduct. It's a little bit shorter, and they do talk about cheating as well as conflicts of interest, which in a way you could say that scrim sharing is illegal under these definitions, where under the cheating section they say cheating is prohibited, meaning that it's not legal to do so. And they say cheating is defined as the use of any in or out of game methods, techniques, or technology that affects the outcome of a game that gives a personal or team unfair advantage, including, for example, the use of hacks, bugs, exploits, cheats, or communications with individuals who are not playing the game. So in a way, you could say that last part equals scrim sharing. Also in section 4.17, it says conflicts of interest, where they state a conflict of interest is any situation where personal interests could appear to prevent esports professionals from making a decision that is in their team's best interest, or B, this is the big part, adversely affect or compromise the integrity of the sport. So again, I think scrim sharing also fits under this definition. I'm not a lawyer, but it does seem like, in a way, you could say that scrim sharing is already illegal, even though it's not specifically stated. I think it fits under those two categories, in my personal opinion. But it would still be nice if Riot Games specifically say that things like scrim sharing is illegal. And even if you say it doesn't really fit in 4.17, I can see like certain teams using scrim sharing to their own personal benefit. Like, for example, this is just hypothetical, it's purely hypothetical. I'm sure these parties involved that I'm about to say don't do this, but we know that Evil Geniuses has Crew's number for whatever reason. Let's say that Crew decides to like pay top dollar for Evil Geniuses scrims, or let's say another team really dislikes Evil Geniuses or are really good friends with Crew. So maybe they leak some info about Evil Geniuses to Crew because it benefits them, even though they're not the ones playing Evil Geniuses. Again, these are just examples that I'm using. None of this is factual that I just said. And if there's one thing that I think we can take from all of this, is that I feel like that should be a rule. Like scrim sharing and leaking, it's a little bit dishonest and can really impact the outcome of a game. Apparently there's no secret that this does go on in the VCT. How much of it, we don't know, but at least making it a rule will kind of like send a message to the rest of the league like, hey, don't do this. Would there still be people who do this? Yes. Will it be hard to catch? Yes. But at least now it will be stated specifically that, hey, we don't think this is a good thing to do. And also for players and coaches who are like saying these allegations about another group of individuals cheating, or at least like sharing scrim results, I feel like you gotta just name names and post your own proof. Like, it has to be legitimate proof too, because these kind of accusations can really like ruin someone's like career and livelihood. Because right now a lot of people just do not trust Korean teams at all, and for all we know, some players are completely innocent from all of this, but we won't know until actual proof is given. That's just my thoughts. You guys let me know down below what you agree and disagree with, and as always, stay safe, be a KDA warrior, and I'll see you later.